Okay, 2 for the price of 1 on this proof. This proof will deal with parallel segments and also when we're trying to prove something that's not triangles congruent. Keep in mind, we are always proving the triangles are congruent. Sometimes we have to take it one step further. This is one of those cases. My proof statement is not that triangles are congruent, it's that segments are. So we have to understand that I have to first prove the triangles are congruent, then I can take the extra step to say the segments are congruent. Start it the same. I've been given that segment AB is parallel to segment CD. That does not, I repeat, does not mean they are congruent. We know that they are parallel, not congruent. Parallel lines will always indicate that we have congruent angles. Remember in our parallel lines chapter, when we have parallel lines cut by a transversal, alternate interior angles are congruent. We have 2 sets of alternate interior angles that are congruent here. I could say angle B is congruent to angle C, or I could say that angle D was congruent to angle A. In this case, I'll use both. They're not congruent to each other though, so make sure we mark them different. We do know that a third set of angles are congruent as well because of vertical angles. We don't necessarily need that in this proof though. We could use that, but we don't need it. There's multiple ways to do this proof. I'm going to use just my parallel lines. So this fact that AB was parallel to CD told me 2 things. First, it told me that angle B was congruent to angle C. It also told me that angle A was congruent to angle D. It told me 2 congruent statements. I do have a third congruent statement that was given. So I know that segment BP is congruent to segment PC. These are the 3 congruent statements that I need. Now that I know these 3, I can write my proof. Let's label to make sure that we have it labeled. Segment BP congruent to segment PC. These 3 things combined tells me that my triangles are congruent. And because my triangles are congruent, I can say that segment AP is congruent to segment PD. Those are all of the steps that I need in my proof. So in this case, my proof is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. The trick then becomes, how can I write my reasons? So let's go ahead and at least get our statements in. This is called a flow proof up here. I like to start my proofs off with a flow proof all the time. It helps keep me organized. It helps me identify when I have enough information to prove the triangles are congruent. And it just helps me understand what I've been given and what I still need. So my first statement is that segment AB is parallel to segment CD. The reason? Given. That led me to 2 different things. These mean 2 different statements though. So it told me that angle B was congruent to angle C. It also told me in a separate statement that angle A was congruent to angle D. Both of these will have the same reason. Unfortunately, we do need to write it twice. Angle B is congruent to angle C because the parallel lines told me that alternate interior angles were congruent. So I would just state alternate interior angles congruent, both for step 2 and step 3, because they are both alternate interior angles, just along different transversals. This is the first transversal, that's our second transversal. So I've come up here, I've stated this, I've stated this, I've stated this. I next have to state that BP is congruent to PC. So segment BP congruent to segment PC. I know that. It was also in my given statements. So that's another given. If I look here now, here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3 congruent statements. That's enough to prove the triangles are congruent. I've stated all 3 givens. I have enough to prove the triangle's congruent now. So I go ahead and I state that, but I can't just say triangles congruent. I have to name the triangles. And it all comes down to how you name your first one. If I name the first triangle, triangle ABP, that's fine. So if I do ABP, the second triangle, there's only one answer. And it has to match up. So when I say triangle ABP, it's going to be congruent to triangle. I need the first angle to be the corresponding congruent angle with angle A. So that's angle D. Those are my congruent angles. I listed A first. I have to list D first. I listed B second. I have to list C second. P was last, so it's last again. That's the only answer. Once I write this one, there's only one answer. I could have written a different one here, and then this would have been different. So triangle DCP. Then we have to figure out why. Why are these triangles congruent? Just like before, I'm going to get rid of one of my triangles. I'm going to hide it. I don't want to see it. It's going to distract me. I want to see, what do I have? Well, I have one side, and I have 2 angles. So it's not side, side, side. It's not side, angle, side. And it's not HL. That leaves angle, side, angle, or angle, angle, side congruence. I take a look. The side touches angle A and angle B. That means it's the included side between my 2 angles. Has to be angle, side, angle, not angle, angle, side. So my triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle congruence. I'm not done. I haven't proven what they wanted me to prove. They want me to prove that segment AP is congruent to segment PD. I've done that now, though. I've shown that the triangles are congruent. Because the triangles are congruent, we know that segment AP is congruent to segment PD. Once the triangles are congruent, all corresponding parts are congruent. So we would write corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And we're done.